That was the police department. This is the check-in for the civilian faction. So, and here's the water tower right there. I'll put this better on the map, but that is where the civilian check-in was, at least for this event. And my understanding is that was where the civilian check-in was for previous events also. If you sign up to be a civilian business owner, this is the business permit that you post on the outside of your structure that lets everyone know, hey, this is a business, not like, you know, a NATO embassy or something like that. This is a business. Here's the information that goes on there, blah, 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 stamp of okie dokie. So as a civilian, you actually don't like camp out or sleep out here. You get housing because you're either a government worker, government contractor, or a business owner. So that was the church. There's cafes over there. We'll go check those out in a second. But you are assigned housing units. So this is where I was. This was the church. So this was my room and my buddies were on the other side of me, but that's where we slept. This was the armory next to the church, but they lived, worked, and slept in there. So that's where the armory was, and they slept above it. They were civilians, that was their job, sort of. So everyone's packing up right now, so I'll kind of give the lowdown. So the event just ended, AR just concluded. This was a cafe, and they worked and served right there, and they all lived above it. That was another cafe that they worked and slept in, some bars and other cafes and other random miscellaneous businesses down that way. But they all worked and slept in the same building as civilians. Being a civilian at a Milsim West Insurgency game is very different. And when I say different, I mean in the sense of, usually at a Milsim West game, you're thinking of like light infantry rifleman role. So you're like actively, pardon me, maybe not actively shooting, but you're a member of a fire team. Like that. As a civilian, you're really not there to shoot. I mean, it'll happen towards the end when you probably try and overtake like the police or overthrow NATO or something. But if you sign up as a civilian, you need to understand that you're not really a member of like a fire team. Like, you're there really to, you're an NPC. You are signing up to be an NPC in an RPG game. I had an absolute blast, but you have to also remember my background, other than like the gun handling professional side. I make games, airsoft games for a living. I run an airsoft field. I love RPGs. I love being a dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons. I love Dungeons and Dragons. So like role playing and being like being a part of a specific meta is okay with me. I may need to find my footing as the character, but my brain goes, oh, dude, that sounds fun. Let's do that. Versus like, hey, do you want to be NATO or Roseville? Like, I want to be a civilian. If you're thinking about signing up as a civilian, you need to have a business in mind. So like a lot of dudes had cafes and they were cooking different foods. So some were doing breakfast burritos or tacos at night, or they had like a club that was playing music, just had like lights everywhere. And it was super cool. But you need to have a business idea. Most of it, I will say, is food-based. Now with those food-based businesses, you are gonna need like actual money. Most dudes had like Venmo. So I think I paid like $5 or $6 for some tacos. I think I paid like, you know, a couple bucks for a beer, or they just gave, or people would just hand out beer. That's the other thing. I don't know if those vendors had appropriately licensed California food handling, blah, blah, blah. I have no idea. I wasn't in that space, so I don't know. If you are thinking about being a civilian for Milsim West Insurgency, you need to kind of be a LARPer already, or at least be open to the idea. But you definitely need to settle your brain on the fact that it's not what you're gonna, you cannot do this anywhere else. This is why I love it. I can't do this anywhere else. I could pick up a rifle at any random ass field and go shoot kids in the face. I can't do this. Packing as a civilian can be a little tricky. I looked online. I couldn't find any information. I looked at their tax op, doesn't have a specific packing list for it. That was one of the AAR points that was brought up, so that will probably change. But you just sort of pack whatever the hell you want. So, like, if you look around, dudes are bringing their own easy ups. They were bringing their own barbecue stations that were gas, propane operated, no open flame. But there's no packing list for a civilian because it's so specific to whatever character you want to be. Just bring whatever you want for packing for, like, just bring whatever you would want to use for 3 days of camping. How's that? And whatever your business would need. So if you want to have a nightclub, okay, well, you're going to want to bring a generator because that's what dudes were using. They were using gas-powered generators. If you're going to want to be a cafe, you're going to want to figure out how to, I don't know, maybe keep things refrigerated or bring a bunch of ice, if that would apply. How are you going to store things? Like, what are you going to need to portray that character or operate that business effectively? And how can you transport that here, and is that sustainable for 3 days? So like a gas generator, as long as you have adequate amount of fuel for the generator, you could operate a nightclub at night with cool lights and a movie night and stuff like that because you have the infrastructure for it. Some items you're going to want to think of as a civilian is like convenience items. So like a lot of people brought cots to sleep on. So they had like their whole truck packed. They had cots, tarps maybe to cover up windows so it's not as drafty, or sleeping pad. They had all kinds of like super camping convenience items that you'd want to bring out. For kit, I brought none. Here's what I brought for weapons. I brought my KWA T10, 2 magazines. That was it. I didn't bring chest rig, I didn't bring plate carriers, I didn't bring any of that stuff. You can, dudes did, because there is always that last let's go. So there are those grandiose battles that you could use that stuff in. I went in as a scav. I went in dressed like this with my old man green sweater vest, a magazine in my pocket, a rifle with a magazine in it. That was it. I went in super level scav meta. One item you're definitely gonna want to bring if you're a civilian is a broom to sweep all the crap out of your room, because there's gonna be a lot of crap. Bring a broom. So there's not a packing list in the sense of like rain gear, socks, blah, blah, blah. I didn't bring any rain gear. I looked at the weather report for Victorville. It wasn't gonna rain. I'm not gonna bring fucking rain gear. What I did bring was cold weather stuff. I actually should have brought more. I packed you saw what I brought. 2 bags worth of stuff, that was it. Granted, I also wasn't fully aware of like what my character was gonna be until I sort of showed up here, because I was sort of tag teaming with a buddy of mine, so that's a thing. But just pretend you're going to do cosplay camping for 3 days. Plan for that. I love you. Thank you for watching. This shit was lit.
Caber, who the f*** are you, nerd?